Obama's Attorney General refuses to do his duty to enforce immigration laws. Instead, the Obama administration uses prosecutorial discretion and deferred deportation because they want this. Kaiser Health News reported on February 12th that Medicaid paid $2 billion in free emergency room coverage for illegal aliens. Most of the coverage was for the birthing of anchor babies. Children born in the United States of mothers here illegally. In addition to these Medicaid payments, Medicare was paying $91.6 million for other medical services being offered to illegal aliens. And they say, yeah, come on in. It's free. It's not free. We're paying for it. It's not free. And Obamacare is going to pick up health care insurance for 27 million uninsured people. But this number is more likely to be a lot bigger as illegal aliens are brought into the program. Now, because, most of these illegals make pretty low wages. And companies, businesses, especially the big businesses across this country, are now dependent on this low-skilled, low-wage labor. They don't want to hire Americans who are going to demand breaks and reasonable hours and a decent paycheck that they can live on. They say, well, we don't want you. We want the illegal aliens because they live 8 or 10 in an apartment. They pool their money. They send half home and send the other half paying to live here. They like that. They like the low-wage mentality. In last February, a poll by Reuters shows that 30% of Americans believe most illegal aliens should be deported. 23% believe all illegal aliens should be deported. Well, what's the argument we hear on that? It's that you can't round up 11 million illegals. Well, it's been 11 million for the last 5 years. Let's start telling the truth here. That number has at least doubled. And you don't have to round them up and deport them. So the libtards come out and say, well, it's just a fact that self-deportation doesn't work. Well, it worked very well in 2008. In 2008, when the job market crashed and there were no jobs to be had, there was a mass self-deportation. When the jobs were gone, they went home. They don't want to be Americans. They want to come here and work. That's it. They don't want to be Americans. They don't want to assimilate. They don't want to learn the language. They just want to come here and work and take American jobs, and they're doing it illegally. They self-deported in 2008. That's the proof it does work. So when the libs and progressives come out and say that self-deportation thing doesn't work, they're lying to you. It's a barefaced lie because it worked very well in 2008 when there were no jobs to be had. They went home. In February, Obama invited John McCain and Lindsey Graham to the White House to discuss comprehensive immigration reform. And, of course, nothing was accomplished. Now, keep this in mind because as we go through the program, you're going to see this is part of the strategy. You may have talks, but it's not going to be meaningful. And the idea behind this whole thing is to have no meaningful conversation with your opponents. That's part of the Saul Alinsky rules. So keep in mind that at the same time that Obama is saying that he wants this immigration reform, sequester for releasing immigration detainees. Well, why didn't they release anybody else? They do that locally and statewide too. It's the same thing. When they have a budget issue, did you ever notice instead of cutting all of the extravagant expenditures for government, instead they want to cut police and fire, and of course they have to start releasing people out of jail. Well, even locally, city and statewide across this country, they're releasing the illegals. Now, what kind of message is that sending? What is the message there? and blame the sequester for that. I think that's an outrage. Well, let me give you a little history. Because, Barack Obama, when he took office, when he first took office, started filling his cabinet with people who think the same way he does. And that includes Attorney General and Rahm Emanuel and Bernanke and John Brennan. What about John Brennan? Let me play you a clip of John Brennan. And for those of you that don't know, John Brennan was in an official capacity in Saudi Arabia when he was converted to Islam by the Saudi government. People say, well, the Saudi government didn't do that. Well, the Saudi government did do that. And despite what you say, this was a official who was in an official capacity in a foreign country who was converted to Islam. Listen to his views now.
Our enemy is not terrorism because terrorism is but a tactic. Our enemy is not terror because terror is a state of mind. And as Americans, we refuse to live in fear. Nor do we describe our enemy as jihadists or Islamists because jihad is a holy struggle, a legitimate tenet of Islam.
It's a legitimate tenet of Islam. So we don't call them jihadists because that's a legitimate tenet of Islam. This is now the director of the CIA. The director of the CIA who says that jihad is a legitimate tenet of Islam. Why did he put him in charge of the CIA? More than that, why was he confirmed? This political correctness stuff is just out of control. Well, let me give you some history here. Obama has lived and breathed this community organizing Alinsky theories since he was very young. He is an expert in this. He is taught on Alinsky methods. He knows it very, very, very well. Now that he was elected as president, he's able to initialize and put into place all the things that he's taught on, believed in for a lot of years. He taught on theories and methods for years. In '85, he started working as a community organizer for Alinsky called Developing Community Projects. Look this up if you don't believe. Developing Community Projects. This is a Saul Alinsky organization. And at the same time, he was building coalitions across black churches in Chicago. Obama was criticized for not attending church and decided to become an instant Christian. This is what we call Christian in name only. Somebody who carries a bag that says, I'm a Christian on it, but when you open it up, there's nothing in it. It's clearly not a Christian. He then helped fund the Alinsky Academy. Obama was a paid director of the Woods Fund, which is a nonprofit organization used to provide a startup funding and operating capital for the Midwest Academy, which teaches the Alinsky tactics of community organizing. He sat on the Woods Fund board with Bill Ayers, as we know, is from the Weather Underground. This guy's a terrorist. Now, here's what's important. Not only him, but Hillary Clinton. When she was a student at Wellesley in 1969, she interviewed Saul Alinsky. She wrote her college thesis on Alinsky's theories and methods. She said in her thesis, this is a quote out of her thesis, Alinsky is regarded by many as the proponent of dangerous scenario political philosophy. As such, he's been feared, just as Eugene Debs or Walt Whitman or Martin Luther King has been feared, because each embraced the most radical political faith, democracy. That's from her thesis. Alinsky offered Hillary a job. when she graduated from Wellesley. But she decided to go to Yale Law School instead. That's where she met Clinton. There's going to be a quote from Rules for Radicals, page 113. This is Barack Obama's guidebook, his instruction manual. Page 113. From the moment the organizer enters into a community, he lives, dreams, eats, breathes, sleeps only one thing. That is to build the mass power base of what he calls the Army. Until he has developed the mass power base, he confronts no issues. He confronts no issues. So think about this for a minute. When these last 4 issues came up, what happened? Fast and Furious. He talked about it, but he wouldn't do anything about it. What about in Benghazi? When he said, we will search these people out, find them, and bring them justice. And then it was swept under the rug. He will confront no issues. What about when the IR scandal came up? He heard it on the news with everybody else. He didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't know because he confronts no issues. What about when it came up about AP? I didn't know anything about that. Somebody else had done that. I didn't know anything about that either. Why? Because he confronts no issues. What about all these other things that come up where he confronts no issues? Page 59 says, but to the organizer, compromise is a key and pivotal word. It's always present in the pragmatics of operation. It's making a deal, getting that virtual breather, usually the victory. If you start with nothing, demand 100%, compromise for 3%, and you're 30% ahead. Now look, there's an old military strategy that holds true today, and that strategy is this. You need to know your enemy. You need to know your enemy better than they know themselves, so that when you do something or when something happens, you can predict with accuracy what their reaction is going to be before they react. You have to know your enemy. Through this program, you're going to know the solid lynching methods used by not only Barack Obama, but through his entire administration that he has set up under him, who believes the same way he does. This is going to be vitally important that you understand who and what this guy is. And like I said in the beginning of the program, what's most important here is what the community organizer hates the most: unity. Unity. What happened with gun control? It went down the tubes because Americans were united on this. Americans stood up and they said, you want my guns? Come and get them. They said, whoa. All right, obviously everybody's on the same page with this. We can go take the guns from everybody no matter what. Let's move on to the next one. Why did they move on to the next one? Because we had unity. Unity is our only salvation from this. We'll take a short break here. I'll be right back. You're listening to W. Dean Shook, In Time, Prophecy News, and Current Events. Stay tuned.
Waiting for the winds of change to sweep the clouds away. Waiting for...
Professional identity thieves constantly search your information for vulnerabilities. At LifeLock, relentless protection of your identity is their primary mission. They help ensure that you stay ahead of identity thieves. LifeLock is first in the industry to offer proactive identity theft protection. They're level 1 compliant under the payment card industry data security standards. They have direct access to fraud resolution teams within their extensive network of lenders and service providers. They are experts through leadership with internationally recognized experts in privacy and security, technologies